welcome to Carma's Cookery. I am your host, Carma Spence, author of Bonkers for Bundt Cakes and Your Perfect Pie. If you'd like to check out those two cookbooks, just check out the links below. Now, in today's episode, I have a good friend of mine. Her name is Clayton Jewell. She is a personal chef that I met at an event, and we just hit it off, and I thought, oh my God, I have got to get her in front of my audience because she's got some cool information to share. Her curiosity for food and cooking began when she was just a toddler. Same here, Clayton. High five. When she was exposed to a variety of cuisines. And then she was watching the Great Chef series on PBS, and that inspired her to learn how to cook and to create memorable meals for others to enjoy. She is a professionally trained chef, graduating with both her associate degree in culinary arts and bachelor's degree in culinary arts management from the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. After spending 7 years working in the corporate world in Las Vegas, Nevada, she decided it was time to start anew and move to Huntington Beach, California. Sharing her passion for cooking with others led her to become a personal chef. And after graduating the Culinary Business Academy, she formed her personal chef business, Jewell's Edible Treasures. I've invited her today to talk to us about spices, what should be in your spice rack, and the health benefit of said spices. So, Clayton, welcome to Carma's Cookery.
Hi, Carma. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Do you remember, that moment in your life when you realized that you appreciated different spices in your food?
Well, I grew up in Texas, so for me, my palate from an early age was introduced to a lot of spices, mainly in Tex-Mex cuisine. So there was a lot of cumin, a lot of onion, garlic, and cayenne pepper. But my first aha moment when it came to really appreciating what spice can add to a meal is the first time I had Indian food. That was when I was in 6th grade.
Yum.
And to this day, that memory sticks out in my head. And I didn't realize what different flavor profiles and layers of flavor that you can add just by using spices. Not, through fats and salts, but just through spices and herbs. And that to me just sparked my ongoing curiosity in how to create different flavor combinations.
Oh, yeah. And I have to admit, Indian food has been a love of mine probably since I was a toddler, because I grew up in Nairobi, and there was a strong Indian population there, and I don't remember this, but apparently I loved samosas.
Oh, wow. Yes, I still do.
I do too. Oh, God, Indian food. I could go, but this is not a show about Indian food.
But my personal cooking style tends to lean on creating more flavors through spices and herbs. That's when I'm cooking for myself. If somebody comes along and they love spice, then I'm just the woman to do it for them. But I do love adding a lot of spice to my own personal cooking.
Well, I can tell you that my spice rack, and if you look at some of my old videos, you can see my spice rack. There's actually 3 spice racks nailed to my wall, and I organize them by sort of cuisine. So I've got all the Indian spices over here, and the Italian spices over here, and the sweet food spices over here, and whatever doesn't fit into those goes over there.
Miscellaneous.
Yes, miscellaneous. So how many herbs and spices do you have in your spice rack right now?
Well, it's kind of a ridiculous amount. I cleaned out my spice cabinet before doing the show, and I counted 70 different herbs and spices.
You're a cook.
Yes. That included some alternative seasonings to salt that I like to use. I have liquid aminos and a variety of vinegars because I've been trying to be conscious of how much salt I'm putting into my food. So it's not just herbs and spices, but I'd say there was probably 62 herbs and spices that I had. So.
And, it's interesting you brought up salt, is because I tend to not use salt at all. In fact, I'll buy one of those things of salt. It comes like this size, and that thing will last me like a decade.
Yeah.
But then I started learning that salt increases sweet because I had stopped putting it in my cookies and cakes and stuff. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I'm actually changing the flavor. Even though it's only a pinch of salt that goes into those recipes, a pinch of salt can make a big difference. So you really need to kind of like play with it so that you get the flavor benefits of salt without the swelling and the heart disease and all those
Yes.
other things that go along with salt usage.
And that was a habit that was a little bit more difficult for me to break because being professionally trained, we're just taught fat and salt are flavor. So that's been a gradual process for me out of my own accord is to just really be conscious of, salt content in my own cooking, but as well as being conscious for other clients who might,
Right.
be on a specialty diet that they can't have a lot of sodium or any sodium for that matter.
Exactly.
So,
And I know that like certain times of the year I need to watch my salt because when it gets really hot, I tend to retain more water than at other times of the year.
yes.
So, yeah. So now, what if you had to pick, oh, the essential spices, the ones that all the rest could go, but these ones you had to have? What would they be?
Is this based on my personal
Your
preference?
personal preference, and
Okay.
then I'm going to share mine.
All right, perfect. That was actually a challenge for me to pick just a couple out of that list of spices. But I picked five that I just, over time, have realized I always have this. That's cayenne pepper. Aside from just salt and regular black pepper, I love cayenne pepper, so I have to have that. Cumin, both whole cumin seeds and ground cumin. Oregano, I like keeping oregano. Cinnamon, I love cinnamon. I'll use cinnamon in just about anything. And the last one that I've recently added is cardamom pods. I've been doing a lot more Indian food cooking, so I've been making a lot more curries and having that particular spice. That for
Right.
me is an essential.
Oh, and cardamom pods, if you add them, like if you're brewing tea,
Mm-hmm.
add them into the water. And then
Yes.
you'll get like a cardamom tea, which is, it's like chai, your very own chai.
Yes. Very refreshing.
Well, we have a little bit of overlap. I have what I call my Italian herbs because there's oregano, thyme, and oh, what's the third one? There's thyme, oregano, and there was a third one. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's like I absolutely have to have those because I do a lot of Italian style in my foods. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's the essential what I call the sweet spices, so like cinnamon and ginger. Although cinnamon you can use in savory dishes, which I learned by
Yes.
cooking Indian food. And then there's the Indian spices. I gotta have, if nothing else, I will settle for a curry,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd rather have the individual ones like some turmeric and some cumin and some paprika.
Yes.
What's really cool is that, and actually I do like cardamom. I don't use it that often. But what's really interesting about the history of cardamom, at least what I've learned, I mean, I don't know how accurate this is, but from what I understand, it originally came from India, and India tends to use it in their savory dishes. But somehow, cardamom made it to Sweden, and the Swedes use it in their desserts.
It does not surprise me. They have a lot of orange in their
Yeah. Oh,
desserts.
and I've made a cardamom cookie. It's kind of like a sugar cookie, but with cardamom. It is so tasty. So definitely now I'm like, okay, I'll add cardamom to either way. Like cinnamon, it can go savory or it can go sweet.
Yeah, and that's the fun thing about spices. On a lot of them, you can incorporate them either way in savory or sweet cooking.
Right, yeah. You just kind of, and this is what I kind of espouse in Karma's Cookery is experiment. And if you're not sure of something, I mean, how I learned to experiment, because I am not professionally trained, is I would just follow a recipe the first couple of times, maybe just the first time, to see what the original cook who created the recipe was trying to go for.
Hmm.
And then once I had a feel for what that flavor was, I go, for my taste, I think I'd add a little bit of this. And through learning how other people mix their spices, I sort of figured out what my personal palate is. So now, no recipe is safe. I can't even follow my own recipes anymore. It's just like I'll
Yeah.
follow it and then I'll go, oh no, today I don't want less sugar or I want more cinnamon or whatever. Do you find yourself doing the same way? I mean, I'm not sure if being professionally trained, does that encourage that or does it stomp
It
on it?
it encourages it. because I mean we use specific spices when we were being trained at culinary school. It wasn't until I lived in Las Vegas and I was getting kind of run-of-the-mill produce from grocery stores that didn't, they just needed a little kind of pick-me-up. And that's when I started really just combining different spices. You know, sometimes it was a hit and miss. Sometimes I just feel like, oh my God, I should be the only one eating this. Nobody else should have to suffer through this. But that's how you learn. That's how you learn with any kind of cooking. You know, I still will look at recipes just as a general idea of what, like you said, what they're trying to go for. And then based on my taste or based on my client's tastes, you know, if somebody doesn't want garlic powder because they don't like garlic, you know, you take that out. I mean, it's all about exploring and experimenting.
And that you just mentioned the two that I forgot to mention. I cannot live without onion powder and garlic powder.
Yeah, I have them all the time, but I was like, which of these other spices are more robust than just that?
Right. Well, now we need to take a quick break, and we'll see you when we come back.
Perfect.
Welcome back to Carma's Cookery. Before the break, Clayton and I were chatting about what essential herbs and spices needed to be in at least our personal spice racks. And this helps you come up with your personal palette for a spice rack. And then just before the break, we were talking a little bit about experimentation, which made me think of some of the crazy recipes I've experimented with, and I just wanted to share them because they're kind of wild. I, for some reason, have decided I really love mustard. Not the powdered stuff, but, you know, the liquid stuff, you know, like French's mustard. And I add that to macaroni and cheese. Tastes wonderful. And I make my own guacamole with it. I like mix avocado, a little bit of mustard, some onion powder, garlic powder, wham. I love it. And that's part of what creativity is all about, is like finding out, you know, sometimes think, you know, like, if you have this instinct to just try something, try it. I mean, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to end up with a recipe that you throw down the toilet. And I've had a few of those.
I have too.
My very first mole sauce, which will probably be my last mole sauce, it tasted okay, but something about it totally upset my stomach, and I ended up going to the bathroom for like hours. And I kept trying to finish it off because I didn't want to throw it away. And I kept going to the bathroom and eating more and going to the bathroom. And I finally went, oh, screw this, and threw it away. And I'm like, okay, maybe just chocolate and chili don't go with my body. So speaking of how spices can affect our bodies, a lot of the spices in our cabinet have health benefits. And the reason why we ended up talking about this offline was because of an experience my mother had. She has learned that there are certain things that she can't eat because they aggravate her arthritis. And it turns out that Indian food has a lot of spices in it that they reduce inflammation. So she just happened to go on a vacation in India during winter when her arthritis would have been the worst. And yet she had no pain the entire month because of all the Indian food she was eating. So I know there are other spices that have health benefits. And I thought, well, why don't I pick your brain, Clayton? Why don't you share with us some of the health benefits that you've learned about?
Yes, of course. I'll just focus on the 5 spices that I had mentioned that were at the top in my pantry. I myself have gone through, I have arthritis in both of my knees. Ooh. And for the last month, since I've incorporated a lot more spices and Indian food into my diet, I haven't had the knee pain that I used to suffer. I've also been incorporating more exercise and changing my diet slowly, but the incorporation of spices, when I noticed, hey, this is actually doing something beneficial.
Right.
My curiosity for the health benefits in spices started a few years ago when I heard about Ayurveda. Which in India, that's the practice where they include different techniques to improve your health. And one of those techniques is incorporating different herbs and spices into your daily diet. And that's based on, you know, individual needs. It's not one spice works for everybody. It's
Right.
based on, your build, if they do the kapha, pitta, vata doshas. And so they do a lot of
Right.
research on that. So for me, because I'm not a doctor, I'll preface the statement that this is all based on my own curiosity and research that I've found through articles online based on scientific studies.
Right.
I do recommend that people see their physician before they start, treating themselves with
Exactly.
herbs and spices.
Exactly.
For me, cayenne pepper, that is probably my top favorite spice. I love spicy food. For my own personal cooking, I'll put cayenne in just about anything I can think of, including desserts, but that's me. Uh,
Right.
I've been doing the Master Cleanse, which I'm sure you've heard of. It's the lemon juice, maple syrup, cayenne
Yes.
pepper, and water. I've been toying around with that. I had been putting about a tablespoon of cayenne pepper in that tea each morning, and I just like on the go. So, but the capsaicin found in cayenne pepper, that stimulates circulation, and it also
Mm.
neutralizes the acidity in our bodies. It assists in detoxifying and also in weight loss. It because it's a
Ah.
digestive aid that increases our saliva, and it also increases our enzyme production. So that helps our gastric juices get going, and so that helps us to break down and metabolize food better.
Oh.
So, just having a little bit of spice in that helps you break your food down. That assists in burning excess amounts of fat that we've already stored in our bodies. And cayenne also helps promote a healthy heart because it keeps our blood pressure levels normal, and it helps to balance our bodies of LDL cholesterol and triglyceride levels. So the LDL is the bad cholesterol, and so the
Right.
capsaicin found in cayenne helps to balance all of that out.
Very
So
good.
that one, I mean, there was a long list of beneficial properties in cayenne pepper, but those are the ones I like to focus on what it's doing for you internally. Because you'll see topical creams and a lot of other things that they use cayenne pepper in, like for arthritis properties. But for me, when you ingest it, what's it doing to my body?
Right. And
Um,
again, like you said, you have to figure out what you are. Because I know, again, my mom, she can't do cayenne because it belongs to a family of foods that actually aggravates her
yes.
arthritis.
hmm Yeah, I've heard a lot of people, I mean, especially in diabetics, I've heard that, there, as with most things, moderation. You don't want
Exactly.
to be consuming it on a regular basis because it can affect people differently.
Right.
Um, so, cinnamon. Cinnamon
Yes, cinnamon.
is one of my favorite spices to use in savory cooking.
Mm.
I love using it in meat rubs. I like a
Oh,
Moroccan
yeah.
style lamb. I do cinnamon and ground ginger and then just roast the lamb. And that's one of my favorite things. I use cinnamon in
When can I
salad.
come over?
Yes, you can come over anytime. Cinnamon and salad dressings I like to use just
Hmm.
as a little, pick me up. Especially with the summer berries and things that you're finding out there now. I like to just mix it in with some fresh berries.
And I
Um,
understand that it has some sort of effect on helping people lose weight. I believe it has something to do with blood sugar.
Yes, it helps. Up to a half a teaspoon a day can help decrease the blood sugar levels in type 2 diabetics because it slows the rate at which the stomach empties. So
Oh,
that gives you more of a chance to actually respond to your insulin production. Um, and it helps improve your rate of digestion as well. But the interesting thing I found about cinnamon that I've learned within the last few years is that most of what we in North America will find in the grocery stores is not real cinnamon.
really?
Yeah, it's what you'll find in the supermarkets is made from cassia bark. That's Cassia,
Uh-huh.
which is a species of cinnamon, but true cinnamon is labeled as Ceylon cinnamon. That's
Ah.
Ceylon, whereas the cinnamon we find, because it's a little less expensive to produce,
Right.
it'll just be labeled as cinnamon or Chinese cinnamon or maybe Saigon cinnamon. But most of the scientific studies that they've done on cinnamon are based on Ceylon cinnamon. And
Is there a flavor difference?
the Ceylon, well, the cassia one is has that spicier taste that we're more used to. The
Okay.
Ceylon has a little bit of a more neutral, just a little bit sweeter.
Mm,
Not so much that prevalent spice that what we're used to from
right.
the cinnamon that we buy. So I thought that was very interesting, and I like to share that because
Yeah. Who knew?
I didn't know.
Right.
Cinnamon's also rated as one of the top 7 antioxidants.
Mm.
So that helps our bodies keep themselves clear of free radicals. So that helps slow down the aging process in our bodies.
So does that mean cinnamon toast is healthy for you?
Oh, I wish the combination of butter and sugar in any matter was healthy for you, but unfortunately.
Add enough cinnamon, it's okay.
And don't do the cinnamon challenge.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I've seen those videos. They
I see the videos and I'll just let somebody else do that.
exactly. So we've got time for probably about one more.
One more. All right. Let's do cumin seeds because
Okay.
I love cumin. I will use cumin in my curry powders. I use it in my other Indian cuisines and Tex-Mex or Mexican cuisines. I am a barbecuer. I have my smoker, so I make spice rubs, and cumin is one of the main components of any spice rub that I end up making.
Okay.
So I keep both the whole spices and the whole seed and the ground cumin in my kitchen. It's an excellent source of iron, which surprised me. That assists in people that have anemia. That assists in help treating those symptoms that are related with having low blood iron. About a tablespoon of cumin a day, it provides up to 20% of a recommended daily value of iron.
Wow.
That's just cumin, which I was just blown away by. And some research has shown that in diabetics that it can help with their with hypoglycemia.
Wow.
I don't know how, but when drinking a tea, that can help with your low blood sugar. It is high in fiber as well, so it acts as a natural laxative, which
Oh joy.
helps keep our bodies happy, clean and clear.
Exactly.
And it's also been found to aid in healing of infections or injuries to your digestive system. So
Interesting.
I loved cumin before, but knowing all the beneficial properties, like I'll just start incorporating more of it.
Exactly. Now, the only other one that I knew about was garlic. Garlic, I know fresh garlic. I don't know if garlic powder, but I try it anyway. Garlic has antiviral properties and it can be used in all, I mean, there are all sorts of crazy things you can use garlic for. I've even seen someone who said you can use it to solve a vaginal yeast infection
Well, that's interesting.
if you want to put garlic there.
Yeah, because most of what I was reading about garlic is that fresh garlic kind of just supersedes powdered garlic.
Oh,
I still use
yes.
powdered garlic in my spice rubs, but I think that's very interesting information.
I know often when I'm not feeling well and I'm coming down with a cold, I'll have some pizza with a whole bunch of garlic on it.
Yes.
Because I like pizza.
Yep, and I've heard that fresh chopped garlic can help you get over a cold or flu.
Right. So, and then of course that brings up pesto sauce, one of, God's gift to my taste buds, which is pretty much garlic and basil and a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of pine nuts, although I have heard you can make it with pumpkin seeds. Yummy, some Parmesan. Okay. I'm hungry. In fact, this is probably the episode that has made me the hungriest. So it's like, okay, I got to go over to Clayton's and try some of these meats with these fantastic rubs.
Yes, we have to arrange that.
Yes. Well, now we are definitely getting a much longer episode than I had initially planned. So if people want to get in touch with you and hire you to be their personal chef, how would they do that?
Yes, you could contact me at jewel.clayton, that's JEWELL.CLAYTON @gmail.com.
Awesome.
And I'm easy to reach that way.
Very good. Well, I thank you so much for coming on my show and sharing such a wealth of interesting and mouthwatering information with us.
Thank you so much, Karma. I appreciate the opportunity.
You're very welcome. So this is the end of Karma's Cookery. I am your host, Carma Spence, author of Bonkers for Bundt Cakes and Your Perfect Pie. And you can learn about both those books in the show notes.